Okay, so your Chimo greetings. I'm just gonna give it a minute for people to join in. If you have any issues with the sound or the images, let me know in the chat room. And also, I'm gonna put this link in the chat room. Okay. So that's the link that we're gonna be dealing with. All right. Okay, so your Chimo greetings, Deities. We thank you once again for joining in the live stream. I'm Odwirafo Kwesi Ranehempata Akan. Odwirafo of Akwamumain, Amaruka, Etifimudi, Akwamu Nation in North America within Odwiramain, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African Black people in the Western Hemisphere. So this topic is important because there's a lot of misinformation regarding the nature and function of the female divinity of law and balance, the force of law and balance in creation that regulates balance in creation, Ma'at, and the male force of divine law and balance, who is Ma'a. So we're the first to really focus on who Ma'a is in relationship to Ma'at. Very often you hear people talking about Ma'at, and she was the principle of truth and balance and righteousness in ancient Kemet and so forth, but they didn't recognize that there's a male divinity, Ma'a. Even to the point where once we began publishing on that, some people who were talking about ancient Kemet and so forth assumed that we were making up or foolishly put forth the idea that we were making up a deity because since they've never heard of it and they didn't do real study because they're really not scholars, they're just, repeating things they've heard. They were unaware, so they would rather say that it's made up than actually do some real research. So as you can see, it's common knowledge. You see right here, and we're going to talk about how they manifest in ancient Kemet, Egypt, the Akan tradition of Ghana and Ivory Coast, the Yoruba tradition of Southwest Nigeria, the Ewe tradition, which is Vodoun, popularly known as the religious expression as Vodoun and so forth. The Ewe people of Togo and Benin, some are in Ghana as well. So, and we're going to take the information from my book. So we elaborate on this. The book I published, I'm going to go through this on my book, ODWIRASEM, Trustorical Anthology. And this is a 600-page volume, 8.5 by 11. Some of you have seen this before. And if you look on the back, hold on 1 second. You'll see that we have 12 book covers on the back. Out of the 31 books I've published to date, I took 12 of them that deal with true historical information, which we call Trustorical. That's why it's the Trustorical Anthology, dealing with cosmology, ritual practice, and so forth. And we took those specific 12 books out of the 12 books, 31 books I published. I took 12 of them, put them all together in a volume, and an encyclopedia-sized volume. So it's full color, 600 pages, it's 8.5 by 11. And this is the link. And we'll talk about how you can purchase it and just place an order for $13 today to place your order, and then you pay the other $13 over time. So we put that together, we expanded it, we added new information over the past, since when we released it last spring and so forth. We expanded the volumes, each one of those 12 books, added new information, and made this 600-page volume. So first and foremost, you see Maa and Maat, and you see this image here. So let me give you the larger image. So you can see it more clearly. Okay. Now, anybody who's, even a teenager who would pick up a hieroglyphic dictionary, look in the information and so forth, they would see one of the entries, for example, in Budge's dictionary, Ma'at, the goddess personification of law, order, rule and truth and right and righteousness and so forth. And this is her from the tomb of Ta Aseret and so forth. That's an image I took when I was in the Valley of the Kings and so forth, and went into the tombs and took this picture. And then one of the entries, 2 entries below, you'll see Ma'a, which is the god of law and order and truth and integrity and so forth. And when you look at these references like U right here and N and M and P, these are referencing the pyramid texts, the Meru texts or the pyramid texts, which are the oldest religious compositions yet unearthed in the world. U is for the pyramid text of the Per-A, so-called Pharaoh Unas. When you see P, that's the Per-A, so-called Pharaoh Pepi the first. You see M is Mer and Ra. When you see the other Per-A Pharaoh and so forth, and you see the letter N right here, that's referencing Nefer Ka Ra, which is Pepi the second, another Per-A, another Pharaoh. And then you also see Duat 11. That's important, Duat 11. That's talking about the 11th hour of the Duat. So the Duat is the underworld, the spirit realm, in the language of ancient Kamit. So when you see Ra sailing across the sky in the boat of the sun, the Aten, and then he sets in the west, then he gets out of that boat and sails in the boat of the 12 hours of the night, the Duat, quote unquote, the sun moving through the underworld in the 12 hours of the night until it gets to hour 12, which is dawn, gets to the horizon, and then the sun goes back up in the sky. So the underworld or the Duat, the spirit realm, in the 11th hour, this is a reference to the 11th hour. They're saying the deity Maa is shown in the 11th hour of the Duat. So when you look at a reference like this, you can go to the primary text. You can look at the pyramid text of Unas and Pepi the first, and Mer and Ra and Nefer Ka Ra, Pepi the second. But you can also go to the Duat, the 11th hour of the Duat, and you will find the male divinity Maa. When I was in the tomb of Ramesu VI in the Valley of the Kings in Kamit, you will see the entire book of the Duat, the Shat-im Duat, the book of the Duat, the book of the underworld, on the walls of the tomb, and other tombs as well. So, but the tomb of Ramesu VI is very ornate. It's one of the most well-preserved tombs in Kamit. So the colors are still there. There's not a lot of damage and so forth. So when I was in the tomb of Ramesu VI, I went to find the 11th hour of the Duat. And once I found the 11th hour of the Duat, of course, I took this picture right here. The deity Maa is right there in the 11th hour. So we're not, yes, Budge's dictionary can give you a reference, but we don't just rely on a said reference. When you go to the primary source, go to Kemet, go to Egypt, go to the tombs, go to the 11th hour of the Duat, and you will find Maa. And in multiple tombs, when I went to the 11th hour of the Duat, I found the male deity Maa. Multiple papyri in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, which has now been transferred to the Grand Museum and so forth, that they just recently opened. But there are various papyri of different, periods of Kemet. When you look in the 11th hour of the Duat, in the papyri, you will find the male deity Maa. So we can easily, verify that. So people have been talking about ancient Kemet for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, taking people back and forth, and they've been talking about Ma'at and how Ma'at is so important, or writing books about Ma'at, yet they never mentioned the male deity Ma'al, the male force of divine law and balance one time, then they haven't been doing the study. Ma'al, Ma'at are the male and female forces of divine law and balance that keep the earth and the universe balanced. So let's get into it. We've been talking about Ma'at since we released Maa and Maat since we released our Kuku Tuntun back in 2002. So, 24 years ago, we were already talking about Maa and Maat, as well as Amen and Amened and Ra and Ra'ed and so forth. So let's get into this text. Now, so the key is we wanted to show how this divinity, both of them, show up in the various cultures wherever Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people are. That, of course, the forces of nature are going to show up. They have different names based on the different languages. Just like in Akan, the word for the sun is Oria. In Yoruba, the word for the sun is Orun. But we're talking about the same thing. The word for water in Akan is Msio. The word for water in Yoruba is Omi. But we're talking about the same thing. If you're talking about Maa and Maat, the male and female forces of divine law and balance, they exist because they're the forces that regulate law and balance. But they have different names in each culture, and we're going to talk about that. So So this, I'm going to show you, this is from our book right here. And one of the books that we included in this anthology, you'll see it right here. We say, Tahuti, Sankofa Fa Inifa, male deity of divine wisdom and divination, and Kamit Akan Eve Fon in Yoruba, page 435. So when we go to page 435 of our book, this is the book where we show some of this information. Okay, so the book itself, the primary focus of the book is talking about Tahuti, the deity of divine wisdom, and how he shows up in the various cultures, and his names and titles in the different cultures. So he's Tahuti in ancient Kemet, he's called Fa in Vodoun, he's called Ifa in Yoruba, he's Sankofa in Akan, he's also Afa in Igbo and so forth. So, but in the context of doing that, we also show, here you see the Sankofa symbol in the Akan tradition, it derived from this ancient symbol in Kemet. And we still have them in the ironworks and the gates, wherever Black people were enslaved. The Akan people, they maintained their Adinka symbols in the ironworks during enslavement. But in the context of talking about Tahuti, we talk about Maa and Maat. One of the titles of Tahuti, if you look at the term font, and here is Shanti, but it's also font, which means nose. And then you'll see it's not Fenty, it's actually spelled F-N-T-I, but the vocalization is font with a nasal N, font, or Fanti, but font. And that's one of the 42 judges in the Hall of Alsar named of Tahuti. Misnomer Thoth in Greek, but Tahuti. Font, or Fanti, a form of Tahuti, one of the 42 assessors of Alsar. And is he of the great nose. Font means nose. This little symbol right here is the nose itself. He of the great nose, and of course, Tahuti is sacred. Achenebois, or animal totem, is the habwi bird with the great beak and so forth. So he's called Fat in ancient Kemet. He's called Fa in Vodoun. He's called Ifa in Yoruba, and so forth. We also show how he's called Ocheame in Akan, the spokesperson of the king, the Ocheame. In ancient Kemet, Tahuti is called Ocheme as well, and he has the same role and function with regard to his relationship with Ra, the creator, as the spokesperson, as a representative, as the Ocheame is the spokesperson and representative with the staff of the Oheni of the king. So if you have Ra on the throne and Tahuti as the spokesperson with the staff who speaks for the king, in Akan culture, you have the Oheni the king, you have the Ocheame who has that role. So the same term, Ocheame in Akan, is Ocheme in ancient Kemet. Same name, same function. But then we get into, since they're the male and female force of divine wisdom and balance, and we were showing here that the Sankofa symbol in Akan is the ancient symbol of Het Heru with the cow's ears, and you see the cow's face and the horns, and that is, of course, Het Heru governs the fallopian tubes, the Het Heru, or the house of Het Heru, and her symbol is the sacred cow, the Achinib, the uterus and fallopian tubes with the egg and so forth. You see that is the face of the cow, the sacred symbol of Het Heru in the womb, in the body of every Afuraitkaitnit woman. And here you have Tahuti, the male deity of divine wisdom and balance, and you have Seshat, the female divinity of divine wisdom and balance. And one of the keys here is, as the divinities of wisdom and balance, they have the palm frond, and the palm is representative of divine wisdom. So you see they have the palm frond here, and they're utilizing that to count the years of the individual when they come into the world, and you talk about how many years of life they're going to have, what their divine function in the world is going to be, what they're supposed to do, and so forth. They have the palm frond, and she actually wears the palm tree on her head. Let's go back up right quick. So this is the palm tree, and the palm tree deals with sacred wisdom, and that's important with regard to Maa and Maat, as we're going to see. But some fools were trying to say that this is a cannabis leaf and she represented marijuana, pure stupidity. It comes from the whites and our offspring, and then some of our people foolishly repeat that idiocy. But in reality, the palm tree is a sacred shrine for Tahuti and Seshat in Kamit, in Akan, in Ewe, and in Yoruba. So that's why that's here. Now let's pull some of this together. If you look at we have this stele of Nefer Ren Pet. So you see Tahuti, the male deity of divine wisdom. And then you see he has an assistant who's the sacred baboon, whose name is Anan in this context. Anan means baboon. Instead of saying monkey or baboon in ancient Kemet, it's An or Anan. So as an animal totem, he's Anan. But as a name, the name of Anan is Ma'a or Up Ma'a. So you have Tahuti, the male divinity of divine wisdom, and his assistant is the monkey, the Anan, the monkey, and he's also his name is Ma'a or Up Ma'a. Now, we show earlier in the book that when Tahuti is called Ma'a Sher, he who is true of word, and then he has the assistant Anan that was corrupted into Moshe and Aran, or Moshe and Aran, or Moses and Aaron. So there's an entire cosmology of a text where Ra calls Tahuti to come up into the mountain range. Tahuti goes up into the mountain range to talk to Ra. Ra takes on the form of a divine light called Ra Aku. Ra tells Tahuti he's going to stay in the heavenly realm. He wants Tahuti to be his representative on earth and his scribe and the lawgiver. Then Tahuti goes back on earth. He's to lead the people. And Ra tells the people through Tahuti that if they follow Tahuti, then they're going to be led to the promised land, the Sekhet Hetep. And he gives Tahuti an assistant to work with him, which is the quote-unquote dog-headed baboon, Anan. So that entire story found in the Book of the Cow of Heaven, in the tombs of Seti as well as Tutankhamen. When Tahuti goes up in the mountain, Ma'a Sher goes up on the mountain, the god in the form of a divine light makes him the lawgiver, comes back down, leads the people to the promised land. Moshe and Aran, or Malker and Anan becomes Moshe and Anan, or Moses and Aaron and so forth. Moses goes up on the mountain, sees the divine light of burning bush. He's made the lawgiver, 10 commandments. He's the divine scribe, comes back down, leads the people to the promised land and so forth. They stole the entire story from Malker and Aran, or Ma'aker and Anan, or Moshe and Anan, or Moses and Aaron. They stole it from the Book of the Cow of Heaven. There were no ancient Hebrews. There were no ancient Israelites. That's 100% fraud. There were no black ones. There were no white ones. So this is what this is representing. But earlier in this anthology, we go through that entire story. So that's part of our book. So you see here, the monkey is proffering the eye of Heru. It's a talismanic implement. Let's show that real quick. Different versions of that. Sometimes you have Anan proffering the eye of Heru. It's a divinatory instrument. You look through the eye of Heru and you can see into the spirit realm. Sometimes he proffers the vessel, which is a divinatory vessel. You look into the water and so forth, which is like the eye, and you go into the spirit realm and so forth. That's the form of divination that we use all throughout Afuraitkaitnit to North America. In the Hoodoo tradition, water gazing is one of the major forms of divination. We look into the bowl of water. The Abosom and Nsamafo, the deities and ancestral spirits show us what's happening, and so forth. So Sometimes he uses the vessel, sometimes the eye, the ucha, and sometimes he has the vessel with the eye hovering above it, because the vessel is the shrine. We pour water into the vessel, then we look through the water, and water gazing takes us into the spirit realm. That becomes the gateway for that insight, and the eye of Heru is representative of that divinatory insight. That's why he's proffering the eye of Heru. So the monkey is the assistant to the high priest, and he has the vessel that's a divinatory instrument. That's ancient Kamit. Here are different variations of that, and this is important because you have the vessel, the bowl, and the eye hovering above it, showing what's actually happening. Now, in our Akan culture, the high priest is called the Abosomfo. Abosomfo. Bosom or Abosom means deity. Fo means group or people. So Abosomfo is one of the group of people, Fo, who engages the Abosom. So the Abosomfo is the high level priest or priestess in the Akan tradition. And the Obosomfo, if you go to the shrine of an Obosomfo in Akan culture, right in the shrine, you will see a statue, a sculpture of a deity, which is a monkey deity, and he has a vessel, as you can see right here. And this is what we're talking about. You see this, vessel, the monkey, and so forth. Now, I'll show you another image of it. A few different images. So here's one variation of that. Here's another variation of the monkey with the vessel. Here's another variation of the monkey with the vessel, and so forth. So the high priest, so Huti is the high priest. He's the high priest in Kemet. In Akan, he's called Bre Chiri Hunuatie. He's also called Abe. He's also called Te, and so forth. But he's the high priest, and he has the monkey as the assistant proffering the divinatory bowl. In Akan culture, the Abu Samfo has this sacred divinity, shrine, sculpture, and it's the monkey offering the divinatory bowl. So we can do divination. That monkey's name is Ma or Mara, same name as he has in ancient Kemet. Now let's look at the Akan terms in comparison to the Kemeti terms. In ancient Kemet, the word for soul, divine consciousness, the spirit in the head region is Ka. Feminine, Ka'et. But Ka, soul. The word for Ba, the spirit, the divine living energy surging through you, like the solar energy within you, the life force energy is the Ba. So your soul is your Ka, your spirit is your Ba. And then you have Ma'a, which means divine law. If you look in the Akan language, there's a stem that expands upon a root, Ara, and they combine that. So you have Ka, soul, divine consciousness in ancient Kemet, Kara, which is contracted into Kra, soul, divine consciousness in Akan. Ba, the spirit, divine living energy in Kemet, Bara, which is contracted into Bra, spirit, divine living energy. Ma'a, divine law in ancient Kemet, and of course, Ma'ara, Mara, divine law in Akan. So, but the root is Ka, Ba, and Ma. In Akan, Ka, Ba, and Ma in ancient Kemet. The reason why that's important is because Ma, meaning divine law, is also the name of the male divinity, Ma'a, divinity of divine law. He's represented as a monkey. In Akan, if law is Ma'a, Ra, or Mara, then the name of the monkey is also Mara, and that's his name in Akan. He's Mara, the monkey, proffering the eye of Heru to the Obosomfo, the high priest in Akan. That's Ma or Ma'a, offering the same divinatory bowl to the high priest in Kemet. Let's look at where this monkey finds himself. So here, in the balancing of the heart against the feather, When you balance your spiritual heart against the feather to see if your heart is light enough to balance out a feather, you're not weighed down by lust or criminality or sin and so forth. If your heart can balance out the feather, then you pass that test after transition, and you can go live in the ancestral realm in peace and serenity. Same thing when you make decisions in life. Your heart is placed on the balance of the feather. If it's weighed down by, pollution, corruption, lust, perversity, and so forth, you lose that scale of that balance. Sometimes you see Ma'at herself at the equilibrium point on the scale, as you can see right here. But sometimes you will find the monkey, the male divinity Ma'a, at the equilibrium point. He's at the top of the post, that's the holding up the scale and so forth. And here you have the male divinity Ma'a right there. And let's look at another version. That's from the Papyrus of Ani. Let's look at another version from the tomb of Pa Nentui. You have the female divinity Ma'a herself sitting in the pan instead of just her feather, but herself with the feather on her head. And then you see Ma'a sitting at the balancing point, actually looking at his twin. Right here, the horns right here is up, which means judge. And then you have the sickle and the plinth, Ma'a. So up Ma'a is the name of the deity right here. Judge Ma'a. He's the judge. He's sitting there on the equilibrium point to see if the heart and the feather is going to balance. Let's look at another version of that. This is from one of the tombs in Kamit or Nubia. A much clearer picture. You see the male deity Ma'a, up Ma'a, judge Ma'a, and then you see Ma'at herself with the feather on her head, seated in the pan, balancing the heart against the feather, and he's at the equilibrium point. So they're talking about law and balance and so forth. Now, so again, you have a male deity named Ma'a, who's the assistant of the high priest. You have a female or male divinity in Akan named Ma'ara, which is Mara, which is the assistant to the high priest Obosanfo. Now let's look at a story in the Yoruba tradition that goes even further. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Now there's a story about, 1 second. Okay, so there's a story in the Yoruba tradition about who were the first Ibeji, who were the first twins. How did twins come into being? Because twins are the forces of divine balance. The deity of twins, forces of divine balance. So in Yoruba tradition, Ibeji is the term for twins, and Akan is Ntafo and so forth. So there's a story about the first twins, and they say the first twins were the children of Orunmila, who was Ifa, the god of wisdom and so forth, divine wisdom, and Peregunlele, and they gave birth to twins. So what do they have to say about that? It's a very extensive story, but we say it right. We just give the summary here. Same is true in the Yoruba tradition. In Nigeria of West Afuraitkaitnit, Africa, we find that the Orisha deity of divine wisdom, Orunmila, which is Tahuti, is also called Ifa, had a pair of twins with Peregunlele, his wife. The twins were male and female, and they were called Edun. Edun is the term for monkey. The male Edun went to live on earth with Orunmila. And because of his appearance, he lived amongst the animal kingdom. The male Edun became a priest of Ifa, a high priest. The male Edun holds the Oponifa divination tray, while the female Edun, which is Odu Ma'at, holds the sacred calabash of existence, Iba, Iwa, Odu. So, a Tuhuti, which is Orumila and Peregunlele, husband and wife, had twins. They called the twins Edun, and there's a male Edun and a female Edun. The female Edun, the female twin, Edun, quote unquote, monkey, and so forth, she stayed up in the heavenly realms. But the male Edun, he came to earth with his father as Tahuti, the divinity of divine wisdom. Orunmila is moving through the world and spreading wisdom and so forth. His son, the male Edun, the male monkey, became a priest of Ifa. And when you become a priest of Ifa, you get initiated as a priest of Ifa. You apprentice with the Babalawo, the father of the mysteries and so forth, the high priest. You apprentice with them for 16 years. Sometimes it's a different set of years and so forth, but you're an apprentice first to the high priest, and then eventually you can go out on your own and function as a priest as well. So when they say the male Edun, he came to earth with his father, he became a priest of Ifa. The female Edun stayed up in the heavenly realm, and she has the calabash and so forth, and the male Edun has the Oponifa, the divination tray. Let me show you what the Oponifa looks like. This is the Oponifa, the divination tray, and so forth. So you have the male Edun, a male monkey. They said he looked like a monkey, so he had to live amongst the animals, and then eventually they found out he was a deity and so forth. But they called him Edun because the sacred colobus monkey in the Yoruba region, as well as the colobus monkey in West Afuraitkaitnit, is representative of wisdom and so forth, and the ancestral realm and so forth. So the male Edun is a monkey who's an apprentice, who's a priest of Ifa. He's an apprentice of the high priest. And he's a twin of the female Edun, who also deals with divine law and so forth, and she's in the heavenly realm. These twins, male and female, are the Ibeji, the forces of divine law and balance in creation. In Yoruba, that's what Ibeji is. It's the same high priest and monkey who's the assistant of the divinatory instrument in Yoruba that you have in ancient Kamit, the high priest and the monkey with the divinatory instrument assisting the high priest. In Akan, you have the Obosomfo, the high priest, and the monkey with the divinatory instrument that's supporting that. And in Akan, specifically, his name is Mara, which is Mara, the root is Ma, has the same name as he has in ancient Kamit. Now, but it's no, happenstance, unusual happenstance that in each culture, the high priest has an assistant who's a monkey that holds the divinatory instrument. So, and if people didn't investigate the various cultures, they wouldn't be able to find these, these correlations like that. Now let's look at an aspect of the Ewe tradition. Of course, we said Ifa, they use palm nuts or Ikin for divination. We saw Tahuti and Sesha with the palm frond and so forth. She has the palm tree on her head. These are the Ikin, the palm nuts. That's using divination. Let's go back up. Okay. In the Akan tradition, palm tree in Akan divination. Once again, the palm has to do with divine law and balance. There is the term for proverb in Akan is ebe. That comes from Abe. Abe is the palm tree, the palm nut, and so forth. And the palm nut, it looks simple, but when you open it up, it has fruit, it has the oil, it has a lot of different medicinal properties and so forth. So something that looks simple on the outside, it has a great deal of value when you open it up. And this is why we call proverbs or divine wisdom teachings, ancestral wisdom teachings, ebe, because they sound simple when you give a simple proverb, but if you open them up, there's a great deal of value within those proverbs. So that's what we're talking about. The palm tree has to do with divine wisdom. Now, there's a story in Akan tradition. The palm tree itself is called Abe. And it talks about one of the stories. There was once a woman, and that she went to a certain Abe, a palm tree, which stood there in the water, that she might consult it about childbearing. When she went, Abe, the palm tree, said, I shall give you what you want, but the child with whom I shall present you, when he rises up, will never do any work. She said, I agree to that. It was not 2 days, it was not 3 days when she conceived and gave birth. Now, the key here is the palm tree, the spiritual force animating the palm tree, is a deity of wisdom. That's why she went to consult this deity of wisdom. She didn't know she was infertile. She had to consult the deity. He gave her the information she needed, and you will therefore, you will give birth, but these are the things you have to do in order to do so. And she agreed and everything else. The spiritual force of divine wisdom operant through the palm is Abe. In ancient Kamit, the spiritual force of divine wisdom operating through the palm on the masculine side is Tahuti. Now, so we said this consultation with related instructions is divination with the divinity Abe, which is a title of Tahuti operating as the palm tree. And then we show some of the linguistic information associated with that. And we talk a little bit about Aberewa and how that's associated with Seshat, as well as the female divinity of the earth, Asaseya. And we're showing that Seshat is Aberewa, the one with the palm tree. Aberewa, the ancient mother of wisdom and so forth, and Akan, Aberewa. So Abe and Aberewa is Tahuti and Seshat, and we were proving that there. But the key is the notion of this palm tree and divination of wisdom associated with the palm. And the reason why that's also important is because when we look in the Ewe tradition in Vodoun, we have something as well. In Vodoun, also spelled voodoo in North America, of the Ewe and Fon people, Togo and Benin, in the Fon tradition, the Vodou, the divinity Vodou called Gbadu, is a female deity who has 16 eyes. Badu was told by Mawu, the great mother of creation. She's called Amenet and Echikamet Nyamewan Akan, but Mawu, the great mother of creation, told Badu, the female divinity who has 16 eyes, to go sit on top of Fa, the palm tree. And a great divine palm tree in the sky so that she may observe the domains of sky, earth, and sea. And when Badu sleeps, she cannot open her eyes. So the Vodou, the deity Legba, which is the trickster deity and the deity of communication, divine messenger, was directed by Mawu to climb the tree daily, climb that palm tree daily, go to the top where the female goddess Badu is, and open up her eyes. So Legba asked Badu which of her eyes she wants opened. Badu either places one palm kernel or two palm kernels in the hand of Legba to communicate to him how many of her eyes should be open based on what she is observing in the world. You look at the 16 symbol divination that's across West Afuraitkaitnit when the shells are cast. Some of them are up, some of them are down. meaning some of the eyes are open, some of the eyes are closed. These are the 16 eyes of Badu as she sits on top of Fa, the palm tree of divination and so forth. Fa, the palm tree, is Tuhuti. Fa is Orunmila. Fa is the divinity of wisdom, and she's sitting on top of Fa, of the tree. And then they ask, hey, you're seeing what's happening in the world? What's going on here? What's going on here? What is your message? And she lets Legba know which of our eyes should be open and which should be closed, and whatever pattern shows up, that's a message and so forth. Now, notice it's associated with the palm tree. We go back to ancient Kamit. You see the female divinity Ma'at, who is Badu in Vodoun, the female divinity. You have Ma'at in ancient Kemet. She's sitting on top of this pole, just like Badu is sitting on top of the palm tree, divine palm tree in the sky, and that palm tree is called Fa. Ma'at is sitting on top of this pole of equilibrium, and she's determining whether or not the heart and the feather is in balance. What's the name of the pole that holds up the scale? If we look at the name of the pole, let me go back up. So if the name of the tree in heaven is Fa, in, Vodoun, what is the name of the pole? And we have, hold on 1 second. A god whose body formed the pillar of the great scales. And his name is Fai Mkat. Mkat is the word for scales. Fai is the name of the deity. Fai of the Mkat. Fai of the scales. So you have a spiritual force inside the pillar of the scales called Fai Mkat, or Fai of the scales, Fa of the scales, and the female divinity of divine law and balance on top of Fai. In Vodoun, you have Fa, the divinity in the palm tree, which is the pillar, and the female divinity on top, Badu, or Badu, which is Madu or Mat, Matu or Mat, and so forth. The divinity of divine law and balance, who opens and closes her eyes to determine what's happening in the world in a harmonious way. We have the exact same structure. The male and female forces of divine law and wisdom revolve around balance and so forth, associated with the palm frond. You find that in Yoruba, you find that in Akan, you find that in ancient Kemet, you find that in Vodoun. Now let's touch on how this manifests in the physical body. Even first, before we do that, now, let me switch over right quick. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat room. All right. Okay. So this is taken from one of our 6-week online courses, which is now archived, which you can actually access at any time. That particular 6-week online course, talking about the male divinity Ma'a, as well as Ma'at, but showing the male divinity Ma'a, the divine male force of divine law and balance. We did a whole 6-week course going through his cosmology, how he shows up in ancient Kemet and Akan and Yoruba and Ewe and everything else, just to prove that Ma'a is an actual deity. And in the process of that, one of the slides that we use is this one. Just wanted to bring this to you. So, in the Akan language, the word Oria, as we said before, is the sun. Oria, Infantius Ebria, and so forth. And then you have Msio in Asante and Nsu in Akwama, which means water. So you have two divinities in Akan culture that are associated with these two. And one of the divinities, it says Amosu, which is actually Ama Osu. And then you have Amoria, which is actually a contraction of Ma Oria. So the deity Ma Oria is Ma of the Oria of Ma of the sun. And then you have Ma Osu, which is Oma of the Osu, which is Oma of the water, talking about the rainwater, but the water and so forth. So one Ma'a or Ma deals with the sun, one is the water. Ama Su, Ama Ria. And they'll say, in this dictionary, since they knew it had to do with water and one had to do with sunshine, they were like, oh, that must be the giver of water or rain giver, and the giver of sunshine, the sun giver. That's not actually what it is. Amma, and they'll say by name of God, but it's actually a different deity. Amma Osu is Ma Osu, Ma Oria. Ma Oria is Ma'at Oria or Ma'at of the Oria or Ma'at of the sun. And then you have Ma'a Osu, Ma'a of the water. Now, why is that important? This is Ra sitting inside the disk of the sun, the Aten. And at sunrise, and you see the two baboons praising the sun at sunrise when the sun rises and so forth. And in Kamit and Kanit and Nubi, you'll see the baboons go out in the morning when the sun rises and put their hands out just like this. They put their hands in the water and rub it, and they'll do like this and so forth. Now, in Akan, you have Ma, to give, hand, communicate, bestow, to confer, impart, to grant, to present. That's one of the definitions. You look in the language of the ancient Kemet, Ma'a, what does it mean? To give, to present, to offer, to make an obligatory or statutory offering, an offering, sacrifice. So the word Ma'a, meaning to give or to grant or to present in ancient Kemet, is Ma, to give, to grant, to impart, to present in Akan, because it's the same language. But you also have, of course, Ma'a, meaning to be true, to be upright, veritable, real, and so forth. And of course, that's the name of the female divinity of divine law and balance, Ma'a, and then male is Ma'a and female Ma'at. And of course, there she is with her feather and so forth. And as we said before, Ma in ancient Kemet is Mara in Akan. And what does Mara mean in Akan? Of course, law, commandment, order, decree, edict, regulation, rule, statute, ceremonial law, all of that, moral law, and all of that. And then you have She, the acts of fixing or putting, but also commandment. Then you have Mara She, one who gives or commands. She, the Mara, the law. It says the act of giving laws, legislation. And Mara Shefo, one of the group of people, Fo, who She, speaks or commands. The Mara, the Mara, the law. Mara She, that's the Mara She people. We talked about earlier, one of Tahuti's titles is Ma'a She, or Ma'a Sheru. Sometimes it's Sheru, sometimes it's Sher. Ma'a Sher. True of voice or word, one who speaks, share, or voices, share, or commands, share, the Ma'a, the law. That is a title of Tahuti, Ma'a Sher, one who speaks the law, true of voice, and so forth. That's in Akan, that's Mara She, one who speaks or commands, She, the law, Mara. Same title, both cultures. This Ma'a Sher was corrupted into Ma'Sher and Ma'She, Moses and so forth, and the The baboon, we said baboon means Anan, Moshe, and Anan became Moshe and Aaron, Moses and Aaron, and so forth. And we talk about that earlier in the book. Here you have the boat of truth, the Ma'ati boat, Ra seated in the boat and so forth. But here's the other piece. When the boat rises in the east, you'll have Ma'at sitting in the boat. That's when the sun is rising. She's in the boat, day boat and so forth. And she's Ma'a Oriya, the Ma'a or the Ma'at, Oriya of the Oriya, the sun. That's when the sun is rising. That's at the, horizon, eastern horizon. When the sun sets in the west and the sun crosses and goes into the underworld, then Ra and them, they get out the boat of the sun, and then they get in the boat of the underworld, and Ra changes his form. And let me show you the form that Ra changes into. Gotta switch it over. Okay, so the form that Ra changes into. Now this is page 460 of our book. We're gonna go all the way up to the first book in our 12 books in this anthology is Afuraitkaitnit, the origin of the term Africa. So when you order this book, it's the entire 12 books in this anthology. But the first one, starting on page 3 of the 600-page book, is Afuraitkaitnit, origin of the term Africa. And we talk about Ka means the raised land. It means soul, but it also means the high place on which the God of creation first stood and so forth. This is Ra. This is Ra'et, the creator and creatress. But Af means flesh. It also means house or place of residence and physical matter. When Ra's in the boat of the sun during the day, he's sailing across the sky in the boat of the Aten, the Atenit, the sun. But when the sun sets and he takes on the form of a falcon-headed divinity, that's why he's called Ra, Herakuti, Her means falcon. But when the sun sets in the west, he gets out of this boat and gets in the boat of the underworld. So crossing over in that western horizon, there's a body of water there. When you cross the waters and then you go into the underworld, this is why a euphemism for death, like in Akan culture, is he has crossed the river. And various Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit cultures, we don't say directly, hey, so-and-so died. We say it in a euphemistic way. In Yoruba, they'll say, the king, the Oba, has gone through the roof. That means he transitioned. In Akan, we say he's crossed the waters. That means the person has transitioned. But that goes all the way back to ancient Kamit. There's a body of water that's the gateway to the ancestral realm. When that boat crosses the waters, then he gets in a new boat. And he takes on the form of a land animal since he's in the earth. And he's called not Ra, but Afura. Ra in the Afu, Ra in the flesh, Ra in the matter. This is Afura. When I was in the tomb of Seti, I took this image, Afura with the solar disc on his head, flat horn rammed and so forth. This is from the tomb of Seti as well. And you can see his name spelled here, Afura, Afura. And when he's moving through the landmass, the Ka is the land Ka of Afura. Afura Ka is the land of Afura, the land of the creator. And this, by the way, is Ra'et. So it's also Afuraitkaitnit, the land of the creatress. Origin of the term Africa. But he switches boats. Now, once he goes through the 12 hours of the night in the underworld and enlivening and bringing vitality to the spirits in the underworld, then he gets to the eastern horizon. He gets out of that boat, transforms into a flying animal, which is a falcon and so forth, goes from Afura back to Ra, gets in the boat of the sun and goes back up in the sky. The eastern horizon and the western horizon are the two balancing points of Earth. Amma Oriya is Ma'at in the boat of the sun, the Oriya, and you see her in the boat and she governs that boat as the Ma'at boat. But when Ra crosses the waters, the Nsio or Nsu, the waters, he gets in a different boat. That's Ma'a Nsu or Ama Su, Ma'a of the waters. Now the male divinity Ma'a takes precedence. You see, this is another version of the boat of Ra. You see the different two eyes and so forth, balancing. One of the word for sight, vision, something seen is also Ma'at. So the two eyes, Ma'an, Ma'at, balancing and so forth. So you have the boat of the rising sun. The Ma'at boat is also called the Manchit boat and so forth. The boat of the morning sun. That's the boat of Ma'at. She's guiding it with her force of balance and so forth. It's the boat of the rising sun. It's the Ma'at boat. Ma'a, Oriya, Ma'at, boat of the Oriya of the sun. That's Amma, Ria. And then you have Su and Suo and so forth. And when that's both sets, they call it the Sektet boat. It's the boat of the night. And then that's when you cross the waters, the Nsuo, and the male force, Ma'a, is governing that portion. So the balancing points, sunrise and sunset. Also birth and death. The gate of birth, you live in the physical world, you go through the gate of death. You live in the spirit realm, then you go through the gate of birth, live in the physical world. So life is continuous. Life is not the opposite of death. Birth is the opposite of death. The two balancing points, birth and death, or the sunrise, sunset, two gateways to the different realms, and they're governed by Ma'at. And she goes into the boat of the sun, the Oriya, Oriya, Ma'at, Ma'at of the sun boat. And then Ma Osu, when you cross the waters, you transition, you go into the underworld, and you see Ma'a in the 12th hour of the Duat, the, Ma'a in the underworld and so forth. And let's go back to that. Hold on a second. Okay. Let me go back up right quick. Okay, I just want you to see that reference once again that we pointed out earlier. Okay. So again, the Duat 11th, the 11th hour of the Duat, you see Ma'a there. This is Ma'a in the underworld, in the tomb of Ramasu VI, in the 11th hour of the Duat and so forth, guiding the boat of Ra and so forth. So we're just showing here that the male force and female force of divine law and balance that governs the twin pillars of expansion and contraction, birth and death, sunrise, sunset, the balancing polar complementary opposites. They're Ibeji and Yoruba twins, Ntafo and Akan twins, the balancing twin forces of expansion and contraction and creation of Maa, Maat, and so forth. Okay. And one more. Okay. Let me take this down and let me pull this back up, just so you can see the reference in the physical body. Okay. We wrote this article a while back, Usek Ma'ati, the dual hall of Ma'at. So when someone transitions and they go into the dual hall of Ma'at and so forth, Usek Ma'ati and so forth, and their judgment takes place, and eventually the balancing of the heart against the feather and so forth. What we were showing in this article is, as we said, Ma'at means, divine law and balance and so forth. Ma'at also means sight, vision, something seen. You see the symbol of the eye. And you also see the way it's spelled is the plinth or the foundation upon which the deity sits or stands. Another way to spell that, see this little plinth right here that they're seated on or standing upon. So when you see the eye and then the sickle that separates, and let's look at the sickle separating. So this Ma'at, the sickle, the symbol of Ma'at, that's an agrarian tool and so forth. It separates. Here you're dividing what's needed from what's not needed. Taking what's the polluted part and the pure part, cutting the polluted part away and so forth. You're talking about distinguishing. You're talking about discrimination, saying what's in harmony with order, what's out of harmony with order. This is why they use Ma'at as the sickle, the one that can distinguish between right and wrong and so forth, what's in balance, what's out of balance, what's in order, what's out of order. So when you see the eye and then the sickle, there's something distinguishing or separating between the two eyes. And when you look at what's happening in the dual hall of Ma'at, this is the vestibular system in the inner ear, the canal of the ear leading to the vestibular system. That's the dual hall of Ma'at. Why is the vestibular system in each one of the ear canals leading into that, that water-filled system and so forth? Dual hall, Ma'ati means the two T halls of Ma'at. These two halls that lead to the vestibular system, that's the center of balance in the head region. So it's a shrine for the spiritual force of Maa and Maat. Your inner ear, the vestibular system where the water is and so forth, that's the shrine of balance. If you look the sickle between the two eyes, and if you look between the two eyes and you go back inside the head structure and so forth, that's the vestibular system. It's pinpointing for you where the center of balance in the head region is in the body. That's the hall of Maa and Maat. That's their shrine. So when someone gets possessed by Maa and Maat and they feel that pressure in the head and so forth, that's the shrine. Of course, the shrine of balance in your body is going to be the shrine of the male and female forces of divine law and balance. But specifically, that's the vestibular system in the ancient Kamit. They call it Usek Ma'ati, the dual hall of Ma'at, but in the physical body, that's what it is, in the head region. And when it comes to the plinth, you see the throne is seated on the plinth right here. You see the deity is standing on the plinth right here. Upright, truth, righteousness, straightness, integrity, and so forth, and the plinth. When you look at that spelling, sometimes it's Ma'a spelled with the sickle and the plinth. And when you have the sickle and the plinth together, that's in the physical body. The heavenly region is the head, the neck is the gateway, the earthly region is the body. So the center of gravity near your, stomach and back and so forth, that center of gravity on the trunk part of the body, that's the sickle and the plinth. So that's the center of gravity in the lower part of the body. The balancing point in the head region, the heavenly region, is the dual hall of Ma'at. So this article goes into detail about that and shows you exactly, how they're seated in those areas. Okay. So let me switch back over for that. Okay, so I've got a couple of minutes In fact, let me see. Okay, so question in the chat room, is that why death is portrayed as a skeleton in a hoodie with a holding a sickle? Yes, that's one of the reasons they utilize that symbolism. The sickle originally comes from that, talking about separating and discriminating and so forth, distinguishing. Okay, so when you look on the link right here, and I'll check out the comments in the chat room in a second. Just want to show you this. Okay, so for those who came in a little bit later, we have a couple of things going. So what I've been reading from is our book. Some of you came in a little bit later after we mentioned this, but I published 31 books, but 12 of them that deal with true historical information, cosmology, I put together in this 600-page volume. On the back cover, okay, back cover, you see all 12 books. One of them we were just reading from today, but it's 600 pages, 8.5 by 11. It's an encyclopedia size book. It's in full color. This is where we were just checking out Maa and Maat. This is the one that we were dealing with yesterday, as a matter of fact. If you look at the live stream from yesterday, hold on. So that blur effect that's the origin of the term yoga, and karakasa, the origin and nature of the chakra. But 600-page book. When you go to order, you can go now to order our subscribers. You have an automatic 30% discount. We have the book on Amazon, but Amazon they take 60% off the top for all booksellers, just in general. So like we say, if you wrote a book and you were selling it for $10, you put it on Amazon, Amazon's going to take $6 from you, and you'll get $4 minus your printing costs. So that's why booksellers have their books on Amazon, just so it can get out there. But we also sell them on our regular websites, so we can sell it cheaper on the regular website. So when you go here, the link on the screen, you'll see the book right here. Click on it, and you'll see that when you check out, like you go now and you check out, when you choose Afterpay at checkout, you can split the payment up. It's $44 plus shipping. You can split the payment up where you only have to pay $13 today to place your order. So you go now, click, you'll see Afterpay as an option. You can choose $13 to pay today, and then you place the order. And then over the next few weeks, Afterpay will send you a reminder, and you pay your other three $13 payments over the next couple of months. But you can order the book just for $13 today. That's why we use the Square platform. What we're doing is there was some typos. So what we did was we upgraded it. We fixed them. We fixed the typos, re-uploaded the book. So we're placing orders for any back orders that we had. So we should have those orders out to you all in the next week or two. We should be getting the next shipment in within the next week or so, but we had to do that upgrade. If you have an address, you change your address, in fact, I'm going to put my email address in here. Akan@gmail.com. Send me the name and your new address, and then I can make sure it goes to the right address. Okay, that's the email, Akan@gmail.com. Okay. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to show you that. And yet I'll say, for those who purchased the book over the past couple of days, what we're doing is, you'll see on this YouTube page, we have two of our documentary films. The Amado Kafo Adibisa film, African American Ancestral Divination, but Amado Kafo Adibisa. We have myself as well as 4 other sisters in different parts of the country, showing how we maintain ancestral religion and divination in our blood circles for hundreds of years. The Hoodoo tradition, which is Akan, the Juju tradition, which is Yoruba, the Voodoo tradition, which is Ewe, the Ngengai tradition, which is Fang, the Wanga tradition, which is Ovambo. We maintained our ancestral religious practices in North America unbroken for hundreds of years. So we did that film. You'll see it on our page. And then we did the Hoodoo Akan Ancestral Religion in North America film, where we focus on Hoodoo and showing Hoodoo is actually the Akan ancestral religion by our Akan ancestresses and ancestors who preserved Akan religion under the Akan term Undu or Hoodoo. And we released that a couple of years ago. We're working on part 2. We're trying to release that by the end of Black Trustorical Month, Black History Month. So we're working on that. We're trying to get that completed. So anytime you purchase a book or one of our courses, that's assisting us to fund the completion of our film. So we say, may I say, we appreciate that. But we're working to get that film done by the end of February, part 2 of the Hoodoo. It's going to be a 3-part film series, a trilogy. Part 1 is on our channel right now. You can watch it for free. It's a full film. It's 102 minutes. And a lot of people are watching the Sinners film now, and everybody's talking about Hoodoo now. So you get some real information about what Hoodoo actually is. And then we're working on part 2, which is going to deal with Hoodoo ritual. So this is you can get the book for $13. You can go now. We also have our Medut Soro course, parts 1 and parts 2. Learn how to read and write the Medut and Toro, the hieroglyphs. 2 6-week courses. We had to break it up. We went through this 271-page book on reading and writing the grammar, written by one of our elders, who's an ancestor now, Ankh Ra. But it took 6 weeks to go through the first half of the book. It was 6 weeks through the second half. So we have our course. With the course, you get the ebook. It's a 271-page book, download, and then we go through the entire book. So you can begin reading and writing the Medut and Torah, the hieroglyphs today. One of the reasons we did the course is because we saw people charging like, $300 or $400 to teach a course. Our course is only $15, and the ebook download is free and part of that course. So part 1 is $15. You can, trial part 1, pay $15. You get the full book, see if you like it. In fact, let me show you the picture of the book. Now, this book about reading and writing the language, this is not my book. This is a book written by the elder Ankh Ra. Just so you can see the front cover of the book. This is the book, Let the Ancestors Speak. It's a guide to the grammar of the language of Kamit. So it's a very well-written book, very detailed and so forth. It's 271 pages, but you get that free ebook as part of the course. So you can try part 1. If you like it, you can get part 2. Part 1 is $15. Part 2 is $15. If you want to, and you can see right here, you see it says if you choose Afterpay, you can break that up into 5 payments of $3.75 each. So if you want to get part 1 today, pay $3.75, and you can order the course, get the free book download. If you want to order both of them together, it's a bundle, it's $20. So you can go now, you see here, it's either $15 or $20. You can order the 2 courses together as a bundle for $20. If you choose Afterpay, they'll break it up into 4 payments of $5. So you only pay $5 today. You'll get both courses. You'll get the ebook download, start learning to read and write the language of ancient Kemet. And we compare it to the languages of the Akan and Yoruba and Ewe, so we can show the living continuity of the language. Egyptologists are not going to show you that. They'll teach you that this symbol means is this T sound, and this symbol is the K sound, and so forth. But they can't show you the continuity of the language into modern day speech. But we do that. So, okay. Okay, so I didn't realize it was getting in this late, so I have to run out. But yet I say we thank you for tuning in and supporting the work. But check out our book that's going to help us to produce this film. You can watch both films for free, the two that we have out now on our YouTube channel. If you like what you see, we also have a crowdfund effort for the new film that we're working on. But even beyond the crowdfund effort, anytime you purchase a book or a course, that assists us because we can put some of those funds towards the production and release of this film. So we appreciate those in the past couple of days who purchased the book because that's helping. We're really trying to get it out by the final week of February. So once again, Yerase, we thank you all for tuning in, and Yebe Shabio, we will meet again. That's it.